ladies and gentlemen. This is Walkout Live. I am Will the Thrill Levine, your host. This is my co-host, Ty, the commentary guy, Messner. We are here to talk everything Walkout FC, all the coming up events, which there's a lot of them. We are working on actually multiple shows right now, 3 at this time. But the biggest one we want to talk about is Walkout FC 17 Springfield Fight Night, June 15th, University Plaza, Hotel and Convention Center, Springfield, Missouri. There it is. That's the show. A lot of new fights just got finalized today. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about everything you fight fans want to hear. Please go share this. Actually, I'm going to do it right now real quick as I talk about our sponsors for a second. Let people get on, get watching, ask some questions. Have comments about the fighters. Anything that you want to do, you can do. This is Walkout Live. It's going to be a little different, but yeah, that's it. That's all. Our sponsors real quick. Whole Hog Cafe, 224 West Sunshine in Springfield. That is where our weigh-ins will be. Go have some good barbecue. Watch the weigh-ins. Our weigh-ins have gotten bigger over the last couple shows. The last couple shows we've had 100+ people at weigh-ins, which is really awesome to support their fighters and to see what's going on the card. Carriage House, they actually will have a free coupon on the back of each ticket. You can get some free food in Springfield after the show. Beatles Construction, Bell CPA, Team Fusion, Mixed Martial Arts and Fitness. Go check them out. There's a lot of great clubs on this card, and they are one of them. We'll be talking about a lot of the others as well. And then Free Tech Logging. A lot of good sponsors already. Hopefully we can get a few more, but that's what we've got so far. Let's get into the card a little bit. Let's there it is. Hitting the big time. Springfield Fight Night. Let's see. What's our first matchup on there? Let's go ahead and just talk through that.
First matchup we got here, we got an amateur bout of Calvin Williams, 3-2 versus a 2-1-1 Theron Crouch.
You know a little bit about Theron and Calvin. You've seen them both fight. Calvin, you saw a fight recently. What did you think about his performance? As I'm going to actually do a little social media here and pump our little podcast. What did you think about Calvin Williams' performance at Kansas Crossing Casino a little over a week ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Calvin Williams put on an impressive performance against Joseph Hill, who's also a very well-rounded fighter. It ended up going the distance. I believe it was the only fight actually on that Pittsburgh card that went the distance. Calvin ended up coming up on top. I thought that he probably lost the first round, took the second, and then the third one ended up being a stand-up kind of rock'em sock'em round, and Calvin found the best of him. But I was very impressed more by Calvin's stand-up and as well as defense. Joseph put him in some pretty pressuring and tight and definitely uncomfortable positions early on in the fight, and Calvin managed to not only escape but end up winning the final 2 rounds of the fight and coming out on top. So defense with stand-up matched with the athleticism he brings into the cage. I was very impressed. I think that Theron Crouch will definitely have a tough matchup coming in to Springfield.
Yeah, I wanted to see Calvin Williams pull the trigger a little bit more. I think he could have done a little bit more. It was a tough fight. Hill was a very tough fighter, a very tough opponent. I would have liked to see him pull the trigger a little bit more, but that's exactly what he does. You get to learn. You get to come back, use those hands, use those kicks a little bit more, and see if he can finish a very tough Theron Crouch.
Absolutely. And, looking at fighters all across Walkout, even go to Bellator or the UFC, there's so many different fight styles that fighters bring to the cage. For example, you're saying that you want to see, a little more triggers being pulled by Calvin, and sometimes fighters that we see, like, for example, Daniel Cormier, I've never seen that man pull a trigger, but he's a champion of walkout or of UFC and held the belt for I'm not even for sure how long for the light heavyweight. And I mean, and he grinds out his opponents. He wears them out. He takes them into uncomfortable, deep waters that they haven't been to before. And maybe that's Calvin Williams' training. Maybe that's his fight style. Maybe that's his way to be. But we'll see how Theron Crouch comes. It'll be interesting to see what he counters it with.
Yeah, Theron, he seems to be a favorite everywhere he fights. He's got a lot of fans. The Midwest Maniac, his Midwest Maniac pack, the crew that he brings, they usually rock Joplin Memorial Hall. They usually have like a whole section where 500 of them seem to congregate and make a lot of noise. That seems to fuel him. He is a tough, well-rounded fighter for how new he is, just like Calvin Williams. So I look for that to be an interesting matchup. Most likely it'll come down to how well Theron can use his wrestling and jiu-jitsu and how well Calvin Williams can use his length, his long kicks and his strikes. But, Darren Crouch trains with Ryan Mossberg, so he's got hands as well. So, the fight's a fight.
Absolutely. I can go either way once the cage door's locked up.
I'm just super excited about this fight card as a whole. The fighters on this show, it seems like they just get better and better every time, and there's always a new fight I'm excited for every time we do a show. But this one especially, the pro cards got me psyched. But there's some amateur matchups that have me really excited as well. We have some more that we're working on. The card that we're going to talk about today is enough for me to want to buy a ticket. I'm the one promoting the show, but I'd buy a ticket to watch this right now. And I know we've got more great fights coming. That's what's awesome.
Oh yeah. And even, from early walkout, like, very first walkout being out here at Independence parking lot to even, in the back here at our own facility in Independence, Kansas, all the way to now going to Springfield. There's so much more, like you said, better fighters, more experienced fighters, and I would even say more talented fighters coming up and coming into Walkout's cards that have me excited.
It's funny you say that because there's a lot of them that are former champions that are coming back and fighting on this card 3 years after their first appearance. And he says here, we're at the Walkout FC studios. Hopefully we can have some more people come in and join us and talk about these cards a little bit. Maybe fighters, maybe other people that have experience with Walkout or in the game. But let's go on. Let's talk about the first title fight of the night on the amateur side if we don't add any more, which, it could happen. This card is stacked, to say the least. That would be Zach GQ Yates versus Billy the Kid Wilson. Give us a quick rundown on those two guys, just records, what have you.
Like you said, first title fight for amateur, a featherweight bout. Zach Yates, 3-3, taking on the undefeated 3-0 Billy Wilson. I think, as we can tell, Yates has the experience, 6 fights compared to the 3, but at the same time, Billy is bearing an undefeated record. I think it's an interesting bout that I'm looking forward to. One of the most, when you gave me the list of fights this morning, actually, and I saw this one, it caught my eye, and it's one that I'm looking forward to.
And it's a rematch, and we've had multiple rematches. I think 5 rematches in the last 2 cards. What's crazy is this is our 3rd show in 3 months straight in 3 different states. We had 3 rematches at April 20th in Rogers, Arkansas Fight Night. Those were really good rematches. The best being by far Cal Tolbert versus Tony Grant, who we'll see Tony Grant making his professional debut on this show. Fantastic. The rematch has been awesome. Last show we had a couple rematches with Zach Yates rematching John Long in Pittsburgh, Kansas at Kansas Crossing Casino. That was just a little over a week ago. And, man, Yates looked good in that. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw in Yates in that fight.
Well, everyone knows coming into the cage, Yates has superior and dominant wrestling. He brings one of the most dominant wrestling performances into the cage every time he's on a card. And I speak that across almost any of the weight classes or cards that we put on. Yates, somehow, some way, always finds a way to bring the fight to the ground. And that last card in Pittsburgh with the rematch against John Long, you even said that at weigh-ins, John Long was saying that, things would come out a little bit differently this time. He's been preparing. He knows how to counter Yates' moves from the fight before. And Yates came out and still took him to the ground, still ground pounded him, and ended up, I believe, submitting him in the first round. And to me, that just shows incredible improvement and still superior dominance by Yates. And his record, I don't think, gives him justice to his ability, but it'll be interesting to see what Billy the Kid Wilson comes in to counter with after watching such a good performance by Yates.
Yeah, I mean, their first fight doesn't really tell the tale of what this fight is really going to be, because Yates fought a fairly decent fight, but he came in with a back injury that he had injured in training. He wanted to stay with the fight, even though he didn't know how his back was going to do. He shot for a takedown early, got the takedown. They had some ground exchange, and after the first round was over, he did have to retire due to injury. So, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer rematch, especially the way that Yates looked coming off that win just a little over a week ago. Billy the Kid Wilson, he is a very well-rounded fighter. Really, I mean, he's looked dominant in all of his performances so far in the Walkout FC cage, and I'm really excited to see, what he has improved since his last fight with us at Springfield. The first time around I believe it was October. So, I mean, that's been a while. You got a lot of time to work on new things. Billy has had a lot of time to kind of think about, well, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to do different? I'm fighting a similar opponent because, I fought him before, but what do I need to do to improve myself? And that's exactly what he needs to do, go into the fight looking improved with jiu-jitsu and striking, and see if he can handle that wrestling of Zach Yates.
Right, and absolutely. And it's really, in this bout, to me, it's a story of two tales. You have Yates, who, as you mentioned, had to forfeit due to injury and his previous bout against Wilson, but since has recovered, came back into the cage, won a fight, and is now taking on another rematch against Billy Kid Wilson, whereas then on the other side you have Wilson, who, as you mentioned, hasn't came back into our cage since October. He's been training, mentally, physically preparing. It'll be interesting to see the preparation that Wilson brings compared to the recovery and assertiveness that Yates has been bringing to the Walkout cage. I think it'll be interesting. I don't know which way it could go, but it's one that I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. That, to me, takes us to our the third fight we're going to talk about today, and the second amateur title fight in the lightweight division. We have none other than the infamous Marshall Kemp making his return to the Walkout FC cage, coming off a loss, a very good decision fight. It was a very grueling fight at Pyramid in Arkansas versus a very tough, very talented Luis Felipe out of Kansas City. What's the records there, and what do you know on those guys?
We got Luis Felipe, like you said, 7-3, coming against Marshall Kemp, who's 6-1. The lightweight title will be up in the air for this one.
Yeah, and what's cool about this is those are two guys with a lot of experience. 10 fights versus 7 fights. You're not going to get the first couple fight jitters. These guys got experience in the cage. I know Felipe's fought a lot of tough fights. Marshall Kemp has looked very tough in the Walkout FC cage so far. Like I said, he fought a very tough, the top amateur fighter in the lightweight division in Arkansas, and they went to a decision. It was a grueling fight. I watched it, and it was a phenomenal fight. So go check out Pyramid, check that fight out. But Luis, he is very well-rounded as well. So I mean, these are two of the top amateur fighters in the lightweight division in all of Missouri and Kansas. They lump those two together in the Tapology as far as the rankings go. These guys are at the top. You know, are we going to see anything new from Marshall, you think, coming off that loss?
Well, and as you mentioned, Felipe, 10 fights, Kemp, 7 fights. These are 17 fights put together between these two. It is by far the most experienced bout, at least in the fights that we're discussing today. And in that brings not only talent and strategy, but also endurance. A lot of times you'll see even pro debuts or newcomer amateurs. The fight will last 35 seconds, a minute, first round, because they exert their energy. Someone's swinging, someone catches one to the chin, or the nerves get to them and they get submitted, whatnot. That doesn't happen when you get to this high caliber of performance.
Yeah, I mean, just take for instance, Cal Tolbert versus Tony Grant. The first time they fought, it was a 30-second fight. Tony Grant just put on a clinic. He had the experience. He had all that. Cal Tolbert comes back, fights a bunch in Walkout FC, rips off a bunch of wins in a row. They have the rematch, and you believe for the most part that Cal was completely taking that fight until Tolbert caught him with the Superman punch, and that was it.
Yeah, absolutely. Grant caught him with a shot, put him away, and he had to, in my opinion, like you said, Tolbert had that fight won. Grant had to finish it, and he did. But coming back to Kemp and Felipe, I think that we're going to see much of the same. With this title fight, I believe now it is 3 5-minute rounds. Is that correct?
It's still 3-3.
Nothing changes there?
Nothing changes as far as the title fights go. But there will be knees to the head allowed, as these both, in Missouri, you have to have at least 5 state-sanctioned fights in whatever state you compete in to have knees to the head. For a while, since the state has taken over, we have not had a fight that's qualified because so many people were fighting on unsanctioned fights. Now, this will be the first one for Walkout since the state has taken over in Missouri that there will be knees to the head. So that
brings a factor. That brings a factor. And I think that'll be interesting to see. And I can honestly see this one, watching Kemp fight in Arkansas, I can see this one going the distance and becoming even a split decision going to the judges' scorecard. I think that this could be a very, very gruesome and drawn-out fight, but very strategical from both corners.
There we go. We're going to try and get Chris Gregory on the line right now. He is the Walkout FC matchmaker. Also does a little commentary when he isn't in Chicago during our fight card. Let's see what happens here.
Hello.
What is going on, Chris Gregory? We are live on Walkout Live. We are talking some of the matchups. We're getting ready to go to the professional portion of the card, which you added a bunch of new fights to today.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of exciting fights on this card. I mean, 5 pro fights right now, I believe. One that we haven't announced yet either. Yeah, man, I'm excited for the card. This is probably 417's best card in a long time. Southwest Missouri is going to get a solid and action-packed card. I
agree 100%. Well, let's go to the first professional matchup we're going to talk about. We don't really know the order yet because we're still adding fights, and there could potentially be some that really shake up the division. But let's talk about CJ Randall versus Tyler Schmidt. Walkout FC fans know CJ Randall well. He fought as the welterweight champion several times on the amateur scene. Both him and Tyler Schmidt are going to make their professional debut. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tyler?
Man, Tyler's been on a roll in Southwest Missouri. Just went up to KCFA and did a kickboxing match against Ben Elmore, who's a monster, and he won that fight. So, he's been ready to go pro for a little while, and I think, man, much respect to both these guys. Let me just say that right off the bat, because this is a tough pro debut for both of them. It's not an easy fight. Most people want to get an easy fight for their pro debut, not either of these guys.
Yeah, I don't think there's particularly an easy pro debut happening on this card at Walkout FC. There is a lot of really good out of the gate professional fights on this one, and this one is that holds true on this one especially.
Yeah, it's just hard to say who's going to win any of these fights. These are the type of matchups we really want to see, I mean, when you look up and down the card, even the amateur fights, you really have no idea who's going to win these fights. And that's really what I wanted to bring on this card. I really wanted to step it up in Springfield, and I think we did.
Yeah, C.J. Randall, I love his wrestling ability. I love his ground offense and defense. He's got some good strikes as well. How do you think Tyler Schmidt compares to C.J. Randall's game in the welterweight division?
Man, I think that Tyler Schmidt has a solid ground game. His stand-up game, obviously, just coming off a kickboxing win, is there. So, man, it's so hard to say. I feel like it's a great matchup for both of them. I feel like it's going to go to a decision. I feel like both of these guys' submission game is solid, but both of their defense game is solid also on the ground. On the feet, you know what? I'm not really sure who the better striker is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've seen a lot of video of Tyler Schmidt, and I've seen C.J. Randall fight live several times, and he's I mean, they're both good. I mean, it's going to come down to probably who wants it more, and I see this. We haven't had a professional fight except for our kickboxing match that went to the third round so far. One fighter is coming out dominant. I think we're going to see the third round in at least a couple professional fights at Walkout FC 17 Springfield Fight Night.
Well, and I think let's go back to Randall for a second. He's a guy that really trained, but never really trained for a fight. And I think this is going to be a lot different for him. I think he's going to be going into this fight. He's training with a lot of solid cats. I think he's training at Lawrence Fight Club right now, actually.
Yeah, we have a lot of good fighters in
Shannon Woodard and those guys.
Yeah,
I think he's changed up his game a little bit. When he was fighting before, he was just kind of like, training and then coming to the fight, like I said.
Yeah, and he was dominant. And he was dominant when he was doing that, which is crazy to think.
For sure. And even in some fights, you could tell he's like, hey, I'm just here. What I'm saying? Like
of
those fights. But I think this one's going to be different. And I think the same goes for Tyler Schmidt. I mean,
if we talk about
out of solid gyms with great amateur credentials, I mean, that's really what it's about. These guys were solid as amateurs. I believe their amateur records were 8-2 versus 6-3.
Right.
Tyler Schmidt was 8-2, and Randall is 6-3 or 6-2, something like that.
Yeah, and CJ beat the likes of Max Humphrey and a very tough Corey Hines, who just made his professional debut at Walkout FC 16 and came away with a win. So, I mean, it's not like he did that against easy competition. And same to be said for Tyler Schmidt. Let's walk on to our second fight we're going to talk about in the professional ranks, which is this card is just ridiculous. The talent that we've assembled and the matches that you put together are just amazing. And this fight really has me excited because we're talking about a guy who just came off of a fight of the night performance, knockout of the night performance, and he looked legit against a very tough and legit opponent. That is Ross Campbell versus Tony Grant. Ty, would you go ahead and read us down a little bit of the information on that one?
Pro debut for Tony Grant. He's coming off, like we mentioned earlier, that win against Callanese Tolbert versus Ross Campbell, 1-0 as professional. So both inexperienced in the professional cage, but both very well-rounded and built fighters all around.
Yeah, Gregory, what do you think about that one? I mean, to me, it's a very stylistic matchup fight, but to me, this is probably one of the toughest fights that any 1-0 versus 0-0 guy is ever going to see.
Yeah, man. I mean, I know both of their coaches were like, man, that's a tough fight. But you know what? Like, we have to do that. We have to make tough fights. And Tony Grant was 8-2 as an amateur, I believe, and Ross Campbell was 11-1 as an amateur. So like these guys should have met on the amateur scene, but because of MMA politics, it didn't happen. We don't have to go into that, but it didn't happen. So, man, this is the time to do it. I mean, I love this fight. Ross Campbell's coming off a win over Caleb Collins, who will also be on the card. And Tony Grant had an amazing fight with Cal Tolbert, who Cal looked amazing in that fight also. Both those guys, tough guys and talented, man, really talented guys.
Cal's one guy I would like to see go professional with us as well, because, man, has he gotten a lot better over the last couple years. It's ridiculous.
100%. Cal has improved so much, man, and he fought Tony Grant before, and it was a pretty quick fight. And this time it went to, I believe, the third round, and Tony got him with a nice Superman punch. He had to figure out a way to get in on Cal because Cal's just so big, and Tony was able to do it and find that way to get that punch, and he landed it a few times before the end. But yeah, man, this is the time for Tony Grant to go pro. Honestly, he's fought a lot of tough guys as an amateur, and the same goes for Ross.
So stylistically, Grant's going from one type of fighter who's got that long length and stand up to a very pure grappler and submission artist in Ross Campbell. Who do you think has the advantage, or does Ross have the advantage on the ground?
Well, see, Tony has very dominant and good wrestling, and Ross has very dominant jiu-jitsu. So, I really don't know. I think on the feet, I think Tony Grant might have the advantage, but they say Ross hits hard. Hardy Freely said that's the hardest guy I've ever been hit by, and he's had 15 fights, So, yeah, I don't know. And then, I don't know. It's tough, man. It's really tough. I think Ross probably has the better jiu-jitsu game, but they're both pretty high-ranked in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick before we go on, because we've got two more professional fights to talk about. We announced it just a little bit ago on social media, so I'm assuming they're okay to talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about our sponsors real quick again. Whole Hog Cafe, that is where the weigh-ins will be held. You want to make sure and get out to 224 West Sunshine Street in Springfield, Missouri. See all these fighters weigh in, square off, see what we're looking at with this amazing card. Get you some great barbecue, whatever beverage you like. Just make sure you do it with us June 14th starting at 5. Or actually, we're going to be there at 4:30. Getting all the preliminary stuff taken care of, so you can hang out with us for quite a few hours. Shoot, while you're there, go see our other sponsor. It's right around the corner, Team Fusion, Mixed Martial Arts. There's a lot of great clubs on this card. They are one that's actually sponsoring this show. We could ring off quite a few that are on this. Springfield Fight Club, Glory, and out of TR Fitness. I mean, there's a lot of really good clubs. Like I said, though, just around the corner from our weigh-ins is Team Fusion. If you're looking for a club in Springfield, that'd be a great one. Bell CPA for all of your tax preparation needs. Beatles Construction, Carriage House. Like I said earlier, they'll have a receipt on a coupon on the back of each ticket that you can take in, and you can get a free appetizer with the purchase of an equally priced appetizer, which is great after the show. Probably the next day when I'm hungry, I'm going to go get something from Carriage House, and free tech logging. So those are our sponsors so far. If you'd like to sponsor, you can always hop on. With these caliber of fights, I think you want to be on, because I think there's going to be a lot of really good cage time pictures and video happening. Some highlight reels like Tony Grant flying off the cage to get out of a guillotine from Cal Tolbert. You never know whenever that's the logo that he's going to be running up. So, all right, let's talk about the ladies. Let's talk about the ladies.
Man, what a fight! What a fight! I mean, to me, this is main event material. I mean, look, Ashlyn Kleinbeck is 0-1, but her last fight was Invicta. against a tough opponent. And now she's coming to the Walkout FCKs, and she's going to fight Josie Skull Crusher Storch.
Right, versus another tough opponent. Ty, what do you know about Josie?
Josie, very tough opponent, making her pro debut. It's not going to be an easy fight for either fighter, but especially for Kleinbeck facing an opponent like Storch, you're going to have to want it more than her because she wants it more than you. That's a tough opponent and well-rounded and brutal in the cage is the best way I could describe it. Just a very dominant and aggressive force once she gets in the cage.
Yeah, you don't get a nickname like Skull Crusher because you're a pacifist.
No, I don't think so.
You're a sheriffist if you skull crush somebody. So, Chris, talk to us a little bit about Kleinbeck. We have not seen her in the Walkout FC cage. She's coming out of Wichita. What does she bring to the table? I know she's out of a really good fight camp over there. What are we going to see from her?
She trains with Joe Wilk and those guys over there, and man, you know, she has great jiu-jitsu, great striking. I think that Josie probably has the better wrestling of the two, but as far as the striking goes, I think it's a pretty even fight on the feet. You know, it's really hard to say and hard to tell. I don't like doing that, but I think that this fight is the perfect fight for both of them. They're not going to get if they're looking to go to Invicta, if they're looking to go to Bellator. This is the type of fight they need, honestly, before they get to that step. So here we are in Springfield, Missouri, doing this fight, and man, I'm really excited about it. They were supposed to fight as amateurs, and the fight ended up falling through. So because Ashlyn actually got signed to Invicta. So
right.
That's the reason why the fight fell through. Of course, we're going to support the local fighter. We're going to let them take the bigger fight. Like always, we always do that. We always support these guys, taking a big fight. Here we are, man. I'm really excited about this fight. This should be the main event, in my opinion. I just think the fans are really pumped up for this one and the Ross Campbell versus Tony Grant fight.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about on this card. I don't see a bad matchup. Where I'm kind of like, those guys are gonna get some experience in the cage tonight. Which early on in the card you're gonna have a bunch of those. So far, what we've announced, there's nobody going in there for experience. There's people going in there to further their career, not just, hey, I need to get a couple wins, I need to get some time in the cage. All these fighters that we've talked about so far, they have a career already started, which is a really cool thing.
Most of them also know if they get a win with us, there's a good chance Bellator is watching, and they're gonna get a fight in Bellator, which is a good payday. I mean, let's be honest, it's a great payday, and it's great for fighters to get that exposure, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, we like Bellator at Walkout FC. I especially like Bellator. I'm a Bellator guy, so give me a call. I'll fight for you. I'll fight for you. Fought for him a couple times. I've enjoyed every experience. In all reality, that's the kind of fighters we like to sign and we like to be our champions, are the ones that want to have a career in mixed martial arts, that see a future in the sport, and they're looking to further themselves, because that's what you've got to want to do in order to do this sport, because it's not an easy thing to get into, and it's not fun to get hit in the face a bunch. So,
that's why I don't.
Those who can't fight match make. So
I guess I could match my own fights, but I just think that's a little too political.
Yeah, that's why everybody's like, why don't you fight on Walkout? And I'm like, well, it doesn't look good.
I was like, you should fight, but at the same time, I get it. It's definitely a conflict of interest for sure, and you better have the right matchup if you are. I mean,
and
you guys know it. When I match my teammates, man, I match them as hard as I can get them, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've always been, and it's just, I don't know, man. I think this is probably one of our best match cards yet, to be completely honest with you.
I agree 100%. It's fallen together the right way. We've had a lot of cards with some really good matchups on them, and sometimes they don't happen for one reason or another, but it seems like every matchup we put out, I'm just like, ooh, like that's intriguing.
Sold out events fans too, so it's we're really going into this one, and we're trying to kill this one, and
Right.
Springfield is a great crowd. It really needs a pro-am show and promotion to come in and really be a staple there, but we really need the fans to support also. You know?
So, ladies and gentlemen, go to walkoutfc.com. Get your tickets right now. They are available online. They are selling now at walkoutfc.com. Also, go talk to your favorite fighter. They have tickets as well. A lot of the Springfield fighters have those, so fight fans, get those tickets. When the crowd's into it, it seems like the fights are better. We've had great fights where the crowd's just, oh yeah, it's a good fight, But when the crowd gets into it, it's almost like you want to try a little harder. The fans are freaking out. You're like, ooh, like let me show up for my fans here. So yeah, man, we love the fans. Every fight card we've done in the last year is really just kind of ramped up to the next one and the next one and the next one. And we've got a lot of fight cards coming before we talk about this last professional matchup. I'm not going to say where or exact specifics yet, but July, middle to the end of July, we are actually finalizing the venue, and we've got the date and everything set. We just haven't announced yet. Fighters, be ready for that one. Fans, it's a spot that it's a hot spot for us right now. And then the beginning of September. That will be our, I believe, 6th show of the year. So Walkout FC 18 and 19 are already, they're already in the chamber. They're ready to go. And we've got some really great matchups, we believe, on those shows as well. So, little teaser.
I'm working in the dark over here sometimes, man. Like it's exciting. September is going to be insane.
We're not.
Is going to be great.
We're
man.
talking
It really is, but.
With September. We're talking not just regional names. We're talking about some worldwide names possibly fighting on that card. It's not really finalized, but I believe it's going to be. Each fight card is just going to build up to the biggest one yet, and this one certainly lives up to that billing. Let's talk about.
You remember when Pride FC used to bring in like that one guy, that one guy that really made the push, and you're like, oh man, everyone knows who it is. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of fighters I want on this one for sure.
Right.
Where everyone knows who it is, and they're fighting a local guy, man. So one way or the other, either a legend is going to get a big win, or the local guy's going to get a big win, man. I really, the main event is going to be sick, I promise.
I like it when you say Walkout FC and then legendary fighter. It just feels nice. It just feels nice. Like Ty was talking about earlier, starting in a parking lot kind of is where we kind of threw our first show, and then we moved into Cornerstone Event Center, which is it was a good event place for us, but just to grow to selling 1,500 tickets has been really cool. And it's like we can't even do shows in the place we started because we've outgrown it. And that's exactly what our goal is to keep building these cards in a way that fans want to see them, fighters want to fight because they know they're going to get on a global stage with Fight TV and what we can offer there. And it's just been really neat to watch the maturation of this process come through. Great matchmaking.
That was a big word for an MMA fighter, guy.
Hey, you know what? I try. Ty is a college guy, so I have to talk smart. If I don't talk smart around him, he looks at me like I'm dumb. So yeah, just the process. Great matchmaking. Chris Gregory, for sure. I mean, the best matchmaker in the Midwest right now as far as what's going on in the regional scene. We've got other matchmakers.
The busiest. For sure.
Well, and what's crazy is we're looking to have 8 or 9 shows this year. We averaged 4 shows, and then last year we did 5, and I thought that was crazy. We've done 3 shows in 3 different states in 3 months. Once June 15th rolls around at Walkout
Trifecta.
FC. Yeah,
it's a trifecta.
And we're actually talking about going to our 4th state. Wink, wink. I'm not sure which one that is. If you know your geography, you should kind of know where that might be. We might go for our 4th different state this year. We're kind of in talks with a couple things and see what's going on. But what's cool about that is it's bringing new fighters in, it's bringing new fight fans in, and people are really getting to see the Walkout product not just through pictures on our Facebook page or some videos, but in person where it's even better. So let's talk about this last matchup. Ty, go ahead and roll us tell the tape here, bud.
All right. Last but not least, here we got a professional bout. Austin Klim, 2-1, going against the 0-1 Caleb Collins, who, as we mentioned before, has previously fought the opponent of Tony Grant and Ross Campbell.
Yeah, we've seen both these guys in the Walkout FC cage, which is really cool. It's cool to have film on both of them. It's cool to know something about them. This is definitely a style matchup fight. On the feet, I give a sharp advantage to Caleb Collins, who has knockout power. He just fought a legit boxing match. We'll let Gregory talk about that. Versus Austin Klim, who is going to be the ground fighter in this one. He is not going to want to stand with Caleb, but Austin has some serious jiu-jitsu ability. So what do you think about that one, Chris?
Yeah, man, Caleb Collins is a guy who used to, man, he's one of the OGs, man, for real. This guy just fought back-to-back weekends. I mean, he fought pro kickboxing, won by TKO, and then the next weekend he did professional boxing, which, you know how that is. Every MMA fighter knows if you go over to professional boxing, the judges are always janky. But, man, I thought he dominated the fight. He dominated the fight at GFA, Organized Chaos, and I thought he should have won the fight, but they ended up scoring it a draw. But, yeah, man, the stand-up game is solid. His ground game is not bad either. You know, when he's in the gym and he's focused on a fight, bro, his ground game is there. He's solid. But, you know, if he's not in the gym, that's where we have a problem. You know?
So my question is how much is he in the gym right now? I mean, this is a professional fight. So
yeah, he's in the gym. Honestly, since right before the kickboxing match, he's been solid in the gym and staying in the gym with Scott Heston and Colton Hill, and working on ground game. So, you know, I think that he's doing what he's supposed to do, and I think he's going to go into this with a new mentality too. He has the time to train. He got more time off work to train. So, you know, I think he understands that, you know, these wins and losses really mean something now. You know, as far as the amateur goes, he never really cared. He'd just fight anybody. But now it's to the point where you kind of gotta pick and choose your battles. And I think this fighting at 165 is super lightweight, as I like to call it, is a solid weight class for him, honestly. So I really like this fight. And Klim, man, he's got solid groundwork. He's great he's good on the feet too. But yeah, I think that his key to victory is definitely getting this fight to the ground, and Caleb's key to victory is keeping the fight on the feet and look for that knockout.
Yeah, man.
Because he has wins. You know, Caleb Collins has wins over guys like Deron McCann, who's 4-1 as a pro now. You know, and over solid pros. So, you know, all of his fights, if you look back, you know, he's fought guys like Chuka Willis, and he's probably the more experienced guy going into this fight.
Sure. Yeah, man. I couldn't agree more. Hey, Chris, we appreciate you being on. Hopefully we can get a lot of comments and stuff, but what do you got to say before we let you go?
Nothing, man. Just excited for all these pro fights. Marshall Kemp, man, versus Luis Felipe. Oh, my gosh. I cannot wait for that fight. As a fan, I'm super stoked. Marshall Kemp, man, he's the next best thing. And they say that Luis Felipe out of St. Louis, man, they say he's legit. He trains out of Kyle Watson's gym. He's going to have the ground game. Marshall Kemp trains with James Krause, Michael Morgan, you know, Zach Cummings, those guys from Glory. You know, that's an exciting fight. Billy Wilson versus Zach Yates, the rematch. You know, Billy wasn't really excited to take the fight again because he did beat Zach Yates, but we all knew going into the fight Zach Yates was injured. He fought because that's just the type of guy he is and didn't want to pull out of the fight, and is coming off a dominant victory. Super excited for that fight, man. Super excited. Both those guys are friends of mine. Don't want to see either one lose, but it is what it is, and that's the way the sport is. It's amateur. Take the tough fights while you can. That's all I got to say, man. Make sure you guys get your tickets. WalkoutFC.com. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me on. I'm out of here. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later. So that was a pretty good. It's a pretty good rundown of the card. What are you most excited for before we go?
For me, just excited for the card in general. The Pittsburgh card was short but thrill packed. It was filled with all kinds of different finishes and moves. The card in Arkansas was, my opinion, one of the best that Walkout has produced. And now this one coming up in Springfield on June 15th is by far the one I look forward to the most. Upcoming, so many good fighters, so many good fights. I can't wait. I'm excited.
I agree. Give you a look at our backdrop here. Pretty cool little.
Get up.
Get a little green screen and it gets exciting, you know. Well, let's make it look cool again.
There you go.
Gotta let people see what what it really looks like. It looks cool with the backdrop, and then you see it and you're like, huh, interesting. So, cool looking fight card. I'm really excited about everything that's going on really with Walkout FC because, like I said, the events are just rolling right now, which is really cool. Walkout FC 17 Springfield Fight Night, June 15th, University Plaza Hotel and Convention Center. There's a comma in there somewhere. I'm sure. I don't know where comma came from. Get your tickets at walkoutfc.com or from your favorite fighter. Any of the guys that we just guys or ladies that we just mentioned will have tickets available. Get with them. You can go on our site. You can still support them. Go to walkoutfc.com. Go to tickets. You can. There's a little spot that you can put who you're there to support. And you can definitely support your favorite fighter, support local mixed martial arts. We are sending a lot of these fighters to big shows. Max Humphrey's getting ready to fight on the main card of Bellator against Dylan Dennis here coming up. He's a Walkout FC amateur and professional vet. That'll be the fourth Walkout FC fighter, person that's involved in Walkout FC that's fought on a main televised card already this year. So if you think about that, we are putting a lot of fighters in big positions. We're going to continue to do so. That's why we don't really like the easy fights. Like, let's go get a bunch of wins. Bellator's snatching up 1-0, 2-0, 2-1 guys and putting them on main cards. So, I mean, that's what's awesome is you got eyes on your product. Come see the fights. If you're a fighter, get on these fights because, like I said, we're doing big things. We're going to continue to do things. What do you got to say before we go?
Not a lot. Quality talent, quality production. If you're a fighter, if you're a fight manager, if you're a part of this department, Walkout's where you want to be. Like you already said, we're producing talent that's going to the big stage, nationally and globally televised. It should be good to see. The Springfield card is going to produce much of the same. Get your tickets, get your fan gear, and we'll see you on June 15th.
We will see you at the show. Like I said several times, it's going to be a fantastic night of fights. June 14th, Whole Hog Cafe. Come see us at 4:30. We're going to be setting up weigh-ins. We're going to be having some good food. We're going to be having a good time. See all the fighters before when they're all tired and sunk in from cutting that weight. They'll feel great the next day. They'll be ready to go. But come see them. Come support them because that's really the hardest part to me is cutting the weight. So that's when you see them kind of like they're, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, whatever. They feel great the next night. Come support them. Carriage House, great sponsor, Beatles Construction, Bell CPA, Team Fusion, and Free Tech Logging. We'd like to say thank you for all those guys for making this possible, for making the shows possible. Like I said, you might want to stay tuned to this because we are going to have a lot of information coming out. We've got more fights being added to this card, professional and amateur. July, we've got a show. September, we've got a show.
Stay tuned.
I think August, October, November. I think we're going to have shows in all those months. So stay tuned. Stay ready. Hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have, leave us a comment. What would you like to see on future episodes? We're going to continue to bring you the information with Walkout Live. So that's all we've got for today. For Ty Messner, Will the Thrill Levine, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who watched, and we'll see you next time.